Okay, so it's done. Hmm. Hmm. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, autism family. How are you? Okay, welcome to our practical guide for home intervention. So, how are you, parents? How are you doing? I know that December is fast approaching and it will be Thanksgiving soon, right? So, how are you doing with all your preparations? Um, Wonderful season is coming around the corner. So, how are you preparing for that? Okay, but in our house, it's been very busy. We are very busy transferring. Actually, we're transferring house, and God is really so good. God has given us or allow us to transfer to a new house without even spending money on it. It's just given us favor. It's just all His, I know, His grace, and we are so thankful to that. So anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome to our practical guide for home intervention. We have a very important topic tonight, and that is communication, helping children to go from nonverbal to verbal. Okay, but I just want to say hi to all of you. Hi, Mommy Match Casavilla, Mommy Mary Rose. Good morning. Yeah, Musa, good morning. Hi, Allison Smith. Hello. Eileen Ramos, hello. Thank you for joining us. You can share this in your timeline or share this with your friends, with other parents. Kindly share it with them. So we have actually a sharing question. Okay, we should share with each other. So our sharing question is your child verbal or non-verbal? You can comment it in the comment section. Is your child verbal or non-verbal? And what are the common things that he can say? Okay, so kindly type it in our comment section. Okay, my son used to be very non-verbal. He can only bubble like ba 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 na, na, na. I don't know what he's saying, as if he's speaking a different language than ours. And um, he's really you cannot he's not calling me mommy or daddy, nothing. I remember when he was 5 years old, around 5 years old, there's only two words that he said. So from 5 years old until around 10 years old, he is only consistently saying two words, and that is go SM. SM is a shopping mall here, and he just want to go to shopping mall, and he wants to shop toys. That's why he is that's the only two words that he said. But now he is already communicating with us. Thank God. All things are possible for those who believe. I always pray for him to be able to speak and applying different approach and different methods, and today, that is what our wonderful guest will be gracing with us. So, okay, Mommy Lilia, hello, good morning. Mommy Mylene, hello, good morning too. So, Mommy Mary Caitlin says, my daughter is 5 years old and she is nonverbal and always doing verbal steaming. Yeah, my son is always doing verbal steaming too until now. He's already almost 15 this month. Yay! We are also excited, Liz. And Arev says she can repeat but don't use. Yeah, most of our kids are like that. They hear a word and they speak it, but they don't know how to use it. Okay. And then, okay. Mommy Mitch says I could say my love was nonverbal, but she can comprehend a bit now. Wow, thank you, Lord. And say 1 to 2 words proactively. Okay. Hi, Teacher Grace. Good evening. Good morning. Yeah, good evening and good morning. So now, welcome to our practical guide for home intervention. We do this regularly, almost weekly. Okay, to help our parents, our families to be able to help their kids with autism at home. And this is our life verse. Okay, our first life verse is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. This is the very reason why we don't look at our kids with pity, but we look at them with faith and trust in God, knowing that their future is in the hands of God. And Proverbs 22, verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And part of this training is this, training them to communicate, and that is what we're going to learn this time. Thank you, Lord. So, kindly give a reaction naman dyan, mga parents, react heart or like or care. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Mami Rachel Rupison says, anak ko po turning 7 years old this coming November 24. My son is November 24. Oh, magka-birthday. We have, your son and my son have the same birthday. Happy birthday to them. Question ko po, may nasabi po siya like mga tawag dito sa bahay pero hindi nyo intention tawagin. Consider po ba na verbal or non-verbal? Yes, Mami. Liz is going to answer that because that is also our first question. Okay, later after he taught his after she taught, she's going to answer most of our questions. So please kindly type your questions in the comment section. So let me introduce you our guest. Okay, Liz is Stefanyi is a behavior therapist. She has over 20 years of experience working with children with special needs, specializing helping parents teach their child any skill using evidence-based strategies to help their child diagnosed with autism. She's worked alongside with psychologists, occupational therapists, and speech and language pathologists. And I love her heart, excuse me, in wanting to help parents. Actually, I have seen her post requests to be able to just want to share her knowledge. So I asked her to grace us this webinar. So let's all welcome Liz Stefanyi. Hello, Liz.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you so much for gracing us. So I will give you now the floor. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Honestly, thank you so much for having me. It is such a pleasure to be here. I want to welcome everyone for today's live Q&A. I'm so excited to answer all of your questions. I think a good place to start off is I'm going to just give you about 5 minutes of just some quick information, some quick tips from over the 20 years of experience that I've had, that I've learned, and then we can get started in the questions. How does that sound? Okay, so as you've already mentioned, my name is Liz, and over the past 20 years, I've spent time helping families with children with special needs. As an ABA therapist, I've worked in schools, daycares, private and publicly funded organizations in the greater Toronto area. So I'm actually in Canada around. I know you're in the Philippines, but I love speaking to everyone all over the world. So I have practiced in Canada. Today, I want to help you with one of my specialties, which is communication. I've taught many children with no language to have language. I've also helped older children that did not or have adequate language, or they had limited language, to be able to increase their communication and ensure that their needs are being met. I'm trained in basic sign language and in PECS. For those of you that don't know, PECS is called Picture Exchange Communication System. And what that is when you give a picture to someone in exchange for an item. And that's just to help that communication along. I have trained in ABA, I've trained ABA therapists, and I am trained in PECS as well. And research has shown that SLPs, PECS, and sign language are the best tools to help any child to increase their communication. So I'd love to know if any of you parents out there, is your child currently using SLPs? Are they using PECS or sign language? Any of those tools are really, really great tools. And I'd love to know in the comment section if you are using them as well. And if you're not, I have some great tips on how you can start doing that. So as you may already know, communication has many different forms. So it can be nonverbal, verbal, written, body language, and there are a couple of ways that the research has shown. So the combination of SLPs, which is speech and language pathologists, those are the number one person that you should be contacting. They are going to help assess your child to see if their oral motor skills are strong enough so that they have the ability to have speech. So if you're a parent that's out there and you're wondering, you're at that first step and you're not sure where to start, that would be my best recommended first step. So start looking for an SLP, a language pathologist, that can help assess if there's anything physically happening with your child's mouth. The second technique that I have worked with and research shows that is very effective is sign language in combination with PECS. So with sign language and PECS, what they do is they help facilitate the language for your child. And if your child is nonverbal and they're not able to express themselves, they're probably going to be frustrated. So having those tools in place really helps decrease that, that frustration and anxiety that your child may be experiencing, not being able to communicate themselves. And let me know in the comment section if your child is having any difficulties communicating, or it's very frustrating and they're engaging in like meltdowns or tantrums or throwing things because they're so frustrated. It's something that's very common when I speak with a lot of moms and dads, that before that communication comes along, that there's that behavior piece. And it's just because the child is having difficulty communicating. But as soon as you implement the SE or the PECS and the sign language, that frustration should go down. So I see in the comment section, Ellen Ramos, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. She says, yes, my son uses PECS and basic sign language during speech therapy. Perfect, awesome. That is exactly a speech and language pathologist, if they are properly trained, they will be using those tools. Hopefully your speech and language pathologist is also teaching you those tools at home, whether that is having you use the sign language and the PECS as well, and ensuring that the PECS binder that they have has lots of different pictures. So, because basically the binder is your child's words. The PECS binder, that's all the words that they have. So ensure that your child has that binder available at all times so that that communication can come forth. So there are many questions that I ask parents initially. So some of the questions that I always ask parents, and you'll want to ask yourself this as well, or have your therapist look into this, is can your child move their mouth properly? What sounds can they make? Sounds can they not make? Do they try and communicate? Do they avoid eye contact? Those 5 questions are just the initial stage, just to help figure out what steps you should take when helping your child. So those are the questions that I initially start when I work with parents, and that will help me advise them like what to work next. So if your child is having difficulty with eye contact and they do not want to communicate, that would be my my first step in helping increase that communication. If your child is having difficulty with certain sounds, then increasing the strength of their motor muscles to help strengthen that sound would be the first step in that situation. So depending on the child, as you know, every child is different. So when you speak to a speech and language pathologist, hopefully they are asking those questions and assessing those questions. Allison in the chat says, my son has several meltdowns because he cannot communicate his wants and needs. We have been working on sign language and text, but he is not catching on very quickly. Okay, so meltdowns decreased at all? Have they gotten better with the communication? Initially, when you're introducing sign language and text, there is an initial learning curve that your child needs to get used to. But if he's been doing it for a couple of weeks at least, it should be going much more smoothly. So I'd want to know more in terms of how he's being taught the PECS binder and the sign language, and ensuring that the words are being used correctly. So I told you those questions that I always ask parents. And before I go on to some more questions, I just want to give you 4 really quick tips to help you assess your child and figure out what next steps you should be taking. So every child is different, like I mentioned, but communication is very similar from person to person. And in order for one person to communicate to another, there are certain rules that we have to have. So the first rule that we have is eye contact. Even right now, as I'm looking at you in the camera, when I look away, you can feel it's disengaging. So that eye contact we all have is not too much. I don't want to be making tons and tons of contact, but not too little that you feel that I'm not engaged. So eye contact is very important when communicating, but it's also very difficult for some children diagnosed with autism. So that's something, number 1, to look at is your child maintaining eye contact? Are they wanting to communicate? Number 2 is body language. Body language and being aware of body language is very important. So even if your child is not aware of your body language or other people's body language, that's something that you want to teach and address. It may feel a little awkward in terms of, like, I've worked with clients where I was purposely seeming to be annoyed so that they would catch on that this face means annoyed and to stop talking. So that just sort of helps teach social cues. So body language is something that's very important. If your child is not maintaining eye contact and is not aware of body language, those are very, very important things to keep in mind. Good morning, Dania. Mary Caitlin says, my daughter has no eye contact. Okay, so for you, in the instance of eye contact, I would try and encourage eye contact. So sometimes it could be a little bit difficult. I'm just going to pick something random here. So what I would do is any toy or food, if she's asking you for it, try to bring it up to your eyes. This is just my AirPods, just a little, I like Sailor Moon. Anyways, so just bring it up to your eyes and they would see, and then give it to them. So that will just help increase of, like, my eyes are up here. And if she looks just a second, awesome, good looking. But don't be pushing communication. If eye contact is not there, that communication is going to be extremely difficult. Building in that eye contact, bring it up to eye level, even if it's usually pieces of food is the simplest thing to start with. So if she's asking you for a yogurt or a chip or a snack, just bring it up here. Awesome, great looking, and give it to her to increase that eye contact until it becomes natural, and then work on language. I hope that makes sense. And let me know in the chat if that doesn't make sense. Okay, so my third tip, so I have just 2 more tips. My third tip is tone and pitch. Voice are also very important in interpreting another person's message. So for example, right here, you can tell my tone and pitch of my voice. It's very friendly. If I was to all of a sudden change this and be very angry, you could, just by changing the tone of my voice, even if you were to close your eyes, you can hear emotion. So that's something that needs to be taught to children on the spectrum as well. And it's something that we take for granted, that we naturally pick up on, but some children may not pick up on that. And then the fourth one, which I believe is the most important, is the want to communicate. Some children don't want to communicate. They haven't learned that communication can be very reinforcing, that it can be amazing, that they can get everything that they need. So, and it's usually the most difficult to teach. So let me know in the comments, if anyone that is watching, do you have a child that just doesn't want to communicate? Are they disengaged at all? Are you having difficulty trying to engage them in conversation? Or even so, is your child even older? And if you're having difficulty with them making friends, so even if you see that they really want to, but they don't know how to make that connection, let me know if any of you are having any difficulties with that, because I have some really great tips on how to help build that communication and that want. For the mom that said there's no eye contact can be very stressful for a child. So starting off slow and helping build trust with that child is a really, really great first step when starting to just increase communication. Communication is very complex. I want to tell you, before I tell some more questions, please write any more questions in the chat. Is your child what areas is your child having difficulty in? Is it the eye contact, the body language? Is it just the sounds of their mouth that they're not able to make? Or do they have stimming, or what's called echolalia? Echolalia is when your child repeats back to you, you say to them. This isn't necessarily your child being verbal, they're just imitating what you're saying. So even though your child may be able to speak words, it's not appropriate. So you say, hi Max, and he would say a hi Max back. That's not communication. That's just repetitive. It could be any sound and he would repeat it. All right, so I think that's all for me for right now. I'm gonna start taking some questions. Oh, Josephine, I can't see the other comments down below. I'm not sure why I can't see them all. So the other questions that came up earlier, for those of you, just in case I missed them, can you put them back in the chat? Because I can't see them. So Mary Caitlin, who says, my daughter is doing a verbal stimming. What do you mean by verbal? I mean, is she just making random sounds? Is she repeating sounds that she hears? What type of verbal stimming is she engaging in? Lolita Pinois, I'm so sorry guys for I'm pronouncing any of your names incorrectly. My daughter can sing the lyrics of songs, but does not express her needs verbally. Her way is hand pulling. That is amazing that your daughter can sing. Can she sing using words? Because that's amazing. So I want to tell you a story, a very amazing success story, and I think you will really like this one. So I had this little girl that I worked with. She was about 5 years old, no language whatsoever, but she could sing. She could sing and she could imitate music very, very well. And using music, we were able to change the tone and pitch. So like I said earlier, she could communicate by using the tone and pitch. And all we had to do was sort of teach her to control the tone and pitch, so it didn't sound so sing-songy. She would talk normally versus just saying like this. And it was amazing watching that transition go from this to just being able to talk normally. It didn't take so long, but the fact that your daughter can sing the words, that is amazing. So that is some type of communication. See if you can get that back forth. So she sings something and you sing something. Have you ever tried where like, what would you like for breakfast? And see if she replies back and sings song. That would be very interesting to know. And that can help bridge that gap of communication. Aylin says, my son is just babbling, inconsistent eye contact, but can follow instructions. Excellent. How old is he? Inconsistent eye contact, so keep increasing the eye contact. Like I suggested, bring things up to your face. Awesome looking at me, and give it that eye contact back and forth is a form of communication. Can follow instructions, that's amazing, because that means that he is understanding you. Babbling, work on words that have b and d in them. So if he sees a dog or a ball. Focus on easy sounds that he can start labeling. That would be my initial recommendation. Beverly, what's the difference between meltdowns and tantrums? Okay, this is a great question. The difference between meltdowns and tantrums is the length of time that they occur for. So a meltdown, if you are past the point about 15 minutes and your child is still very upset, you're in the meltdown stage. And that depends on the child. So a tantrum is something that can happen very quickly. You can motivate your child to think about something else or redirect them. That was the word I was looking for. But a meltdown, typically meltdowns past that 15-minute mark, even 10 minutes, it's really, really difficult. And if your child is having a hard time calming down, anything that you're doing for the tantrums is not going to work on a meltdown most times. Work on just calming down the nervous system, breathing to help those meltdowns track into tantrums. So try and be preventative of before they get into those meltdowns. So usually if the clients that I've worked with, if they've been very upset for longer than 3 minutes, I start being very proactive and trying to find other ways to put that meltdown. Because once that child is past that point, they have a really hard time self-regulating, and it's really difficult. 7-year-old, November 13. Okay, great. So you said that he was babbling. So that's great. Focus on those words. Start with food. Easy words, bananas, bottles, even if it's like a juice in a bottle. Easy sounds. See if you can pick just one word to see if you can increase that sound a little bit. That would be my best recommendation. Mecha Casavilla. My daughter used to sing before at age 4. Most of her description of every places we go, especially when riding in a van, then she will sing Wheels on a Bus. Now she always points the pictures and says everything she likes to tell me, but most of them are 1 to 2 words only. She's now 7. How can I help her more with additional description of words or so? So in those, that's a really great question. Pick a sentence that she normally says and try and add just one more word to it. So for example, wheels on the bus. If she says wheels on the bus, this is just an example, try adding the wheels on the bus. If she's able to say that, the wheels on the bus go. So just add one word every single time slowly to help increase the amount of words that she's saying in a sentence. I hope let me know if that makes sense. And so another tip would be to focus on sentences like I want to see this, or I hear this. Use I words so she can start making just observations, and just a couple more words, sentences she's already really, really good with, and that she's comfortable with. Josie asks, how do you know if a child can speak or they will be nonverbal at all? That's a really tough question. To be honest, I don't know. And I don't think there's anyone that can know whether the child can speak or they will be nonverbal. I've worked with hundreds of kids, and in my experience, there hasn't been one child that I haven't been able to increase communication in some way. So there is always room for improvement. Even when the child is getting lots of different types of therapy, a new therapist brings in new ideas, brings in new strategies, new tactics. So can I say that if I look at a child and work with them that they'll never be able to speak at all? No. I've had children that were 15 and they started to say words. I've had children that were 3 that started to talk. But I've also had children, and I want to be very realistic to the parents that are watching, that I've had some children that haven't made any gains. I don't know why that is. I don't know why some children don't have that communication forward, but like I've mentioned, every child is different. And my firm belief is that you, the parent, you are the best to help your child. If you are motivated, you are doing the work, and every day you are with your child will make gains. You will figure out a way to help them. And I think the children that I've had that haven't made those gains, I think it's just either a lack of knowledge in those areas. But for the parents that are here, I have full confidence that because you're here and you're investing your time to your child and asking such amazing questions, that just improve day by day, just a little bit, push just a little bit every day. And I have very good faith that you can help your child, even if it's not to become fully verbal. To have some form of communication is better than none at all. Eileen Ramos says, is there mouth exercises I can do to help him? Because I can see that he wants to speak, but just no sound is coming out. I actually tried telling him simple words, but just looking at mouth. Is he looking at your mouth to imitate? To be honest, Eileen, I would see if you can contact a speech and language pathologist, because they would be the best people to talk about which exercises on the mouth. I am not a speech and language pathologist. I'm not trained on the actual motor movements that the mouth needs to make. For me, I look at the behavior side of it. So I look at the full picture and try and figure out, how can I motivate that child get there? What kind of words can I help increase? So pick sounds that are very easy and words that he really wants to try. But think about it, if it's easy for you to say, like k is hard to say, ch is hard to say, like simple sounds, b, d, ah, like this little boy, he was 3 years old when I met him, and he had so many verbal stints. He had so many sounds, but none of them were functional. He couldn't say mama, dada, nothing, but he could say opa, opa to everything, opa, opa. And I heard this word all the time, and it was Easter. It was Easter weekend several years ago. I think it was like 10 years ago now. And I had this big jar. It was filled with Easter eggs. And every time I would open, he would get really excited. And because he had the word opa, which didn't mean anything, but I knew he could say that word. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try and see if I can get him to say open, because it's close to opa. Sure enough, I had been working with him for probably about a month, trying to get him, and his mom had done SLP, done OT, and he just loved those Easter eggs so much. By the end of it, he said open, and it was the first word he had said. And within a week's time, he was saying mama, he was saying dada, he was saying all sorts of words. But it was just, he didn't understand that the words that were coming out of his mouth resulted in him getting stuff. So I had these Easter eggs, and every time I'd pull one out, I would wait for him to say open, and I would open it, and it was a big field day. So you never know what's going to work. Just keep trying. You're very welcome. Mylene or Sal, my daughter is very long to cry. Same time she goes to sleep, she's not stopped crying at all. Speak to your doctor, see if there's any sensory issues going on, see if she's in pain. There could be a health concern, is having difficulty sleeping. Some children, my best advice on helping sleeping, and I'm not going to talk about any medications because I'm not licensed to do so, but weighted blankets, so blankets that are really heavy, and having a good bedtime routine. So about an hour before you want your child to be getting in bed, take them off electronics, do some fun activities to get some of that energy out, and then start calming it down, do a bath. I like essential oils like lavender and nice calming scents. Read a book and do that every single day. Have that routine set in. That's what I've seen help a lot of children. But if there's something else medically going on, please see the doctor. Find out if there's anything else medically going on. If you need more help, contact me, and we can talk a little bit further about that, because sleep is very, very important and really impacts the child. Beverly says, my daughter used to know how to eat by herself. Since she had a fever, she no longer knows how to eat by herself. She is 3 today, an ASD 3. Happy birthday. I've had a lot of parents tell me this as well. So usually after a child has been really sick, their needs regress, or their skills regress. My best recommendation is to keep going, go back a couple of steps before. So maybe she had a bad experience with the food while she was eating or while she was sick. And that created a negative association to that experience. So try introducing it with some fun foods, and see if perhaps it could be something texturally that she's having difficulty with. An occupational therapist as well can help you with that. They do specialize with eating textures. Does she gag when she eats? Is she not interested at all in it? Let me know in the chat. My daughter speaks English. So Mech Capavilla, my daughter speaks English and understands English rather than in our local language. Should we remove her to the public curriculum, which is more on local language? I'm also having a hard time teaching her with our local language. Maybe she's not interested because she doesn't understand. Does it affect her progress in communicating due to the dual language? Yes, it does. Having 2 languages definitely impacts a child. My best advice, typically if a child, I can't remember how old you said your daughter was, but if your child is over the age of 5, 6, and they're having difficulty with speech and language, I would try to focus on just one language first, and master that language before introducing the second language. Josie, or how am I doing there, Josephina? Okay. Josie Ortiz, she says, can you minimize repetitive questions from your child, although you already answered them several times? This is a good one. So repetitive questions, tricky. So my best advice would be stop answering the question. If you've already answered the question, just stop answering it. Don't keep giving them the answer, because that's what they want. But with stopping giving them the answer, that can make your child really frustrated and then act out. So be a little bit mindful. Best advice would be either stop it altogether, be prepared for some behavior, and then try and say to them of like, I'm not answering anymore. I've answered it, or get them to repeat back to you what you just said. So if you have a child that's constantly, asking you the same question, bring it back to them and say, what was the answer that I gave? Do you remember? And get them to repeat back to you your answer. Mary Caitlin, my daughter is able to speak only one word, can identify colors, alphabets, and numbers, but cannot communicate. That's my number one problem. My daughter cannot communicate. Please help me. How can I support my daughter? I want her to live in this world normally, like ordinary kids doing. Oh, I love that comment. I love that. You don't worry. So if she does have words, she can identify colors and alphabets, and she has all that language, then perhaps let me know how old she is. But it sounds like if she has the verbal language there, she may just need to be taught that there is a functional component to language. So an example that I've had clients, so a child didn't understand this repetitive back and forth. So what we would do in therapy is, let's say I'm holding the water that the child wants. And I would say to the child, do you want water? And I would also say, I want water. And the child would have to repeat, I want water. So do you want water? I want water. And the child says, I want water. So this is it sounds very confusing in terms, like it feels very awkward. But if you can get to repeat back the part that you actually want them to say, that will help them understand that there's 2 parts to communication. I communicate and you communicate back to me. So sometimes having to give them the words in order for them to be able to properly communicate with you is usually the best step. Mary Caitlin, you also said, my daughter does not respond when her name was called or social overtures. I'm sorry, I don't know what overtures is. So if she doesn't respond to her name, see a doctor, see if there's any hearing concerns, if she is able to hear you. If there's no concerns there, you would need to teach her her name. So let's say you have something that she likes, you would say her name and get her to respond, be like, oh, that's awesome. And then you would say her name again. So let's say her name was Mary. You'd be like, let's say she wants something. Oh, Mary, do you want this? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Mary. Just really get her name out to get that attention name, and pair it with reinforcing things that she likes. And hopefully she'll start responding to her name. Most children, they don't really, because they're young and they don't have an ability to communicate, there's no need for them to want to communicate with you, to be honest, because if they don't have that reciprocal language, they're going to go their own thing. And that's a lot of children with autism. They just find ways to do things themselves instead of engaging with other people. So if she doesn't respond to her name, pair it with reinforcing things like puppies that she likes, food that she likes, see if you can get that connection to her name. Beverly Ann David says, thank you, Miss Liz. You are very welcome, Beverly. It is my pleasure to be here. Mary Caitlin says, my daughter is 5 years old. She will be 6 next June. Oh, sorry, I missed one of your comments as well. My daughter showed heightened activity level. She could not remain seated and kept wiggling and moving around the entire room. Also loved climbing and doing. So get her outside, get her running outside, get her, if she's seeking a lot of activity, get that energy out. That will help sleep, that will help her learn, that will help even get her to be responding her name. So if she is really heightened activity level and she's not responding to her name, you might have to get some of that energy out so that she is able to focus. Let me know if that makes sense. I think that's all the questions so far. I'm not sure if I've missed any. I know there was a couple of them that were going really quickly. Did I get them all?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, Beverly's asking, basic toys, ma'am, do you recommend ASD? Actually, I'm going to show you, I'm going to screen share something right now. I'm going to show you what my suggestions are. There you go. Perfect. Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you go to my website at kidswithliz.com, there's a free resources tab right here. And these are sensory toys for your child who you're seeing very heightened activity. These indoor swings are really great for any sensory needs. They're not like regular swings where you swing back and forth. They provide this whole body compression that really helps children regulate their body. And I have some more links down here of some other supports. So these are the PECs and visual supports that if your child is having difficulty transitioning from one activity to another, or if they're wanting to help communicate with you, you can also use these. These, you can find them on Amazon. These here are good for headphones to cut out children that are having sensory, if the sounds are too high for them and they're having difficulty focusing, which for some children that are having difficulty communicating, it could just be an overload of information and they don't want to, especially if they don't have eye contact and they're not engaging. These 3 tools here are really, really great in helping regulate your child and helping your child sort of become aware of their own body. And before I leave that, so there was also questions to ask your ABA therapist. I was talking to Josephina earlier before we went live, and we were talking about ABA therapists coming into the Philippines. And this is a really great guide that I would recommend for all parents to go. It's free. You can go on my website at www.teachingkidswithliz.com. You sign in here, and this is just a couple of questions that you can ask your ABA therapist just to make sure, or any of your therapists, speech and language pathologists, just to make sure that they are knowledgeable and that they are doing the correct thing. Because I know here there's a lot of therapists that aren't regulated, and other areas of the world, I'm sure there are as well. This just helps you stay informed and make sure you are asking the right questions to ensure that you are getting the correct services. And before I leave, I know we're getting on to the last 10 minutes here. I'll take up some more questions, but I wanted to show you my YouTube page that I made last year. So when COVID hit, all my friends and clients came to me. I've been homeschooling my children for years. So not because of COVID, that's something that I've been doing. And all my clients and all my friends came when COVID hit, and they're like, I don't know how to teach my child. What do I do? My therapists aren't available. I made this YouTube channel to help parents with children with autism, to help parents that are wanting to go and teaching their children to be able to teach their child anything that they'd like. So we have, there's a couple of videos out. It's a very new, I only have a couple of videos, but you find the ABA therapy top tips, the 5 positives and cons. And one topic that I'd like to speak with many parents about is there's this controversy of ABA and if ABA is helpful within the community and whether it works. ABA is just a tool. There are many parents out there and many adults out there that do claim that ABA is going to be, is abusive. I myself I've seen it used incorrectly and correctly. And my best advice to you is to make sure that you are informed, make sure you're asking your therapist the correct questions, and always advocate for your child. I know that you moms on here, I love speaking to moms, like you ladies that are super motivated and dedicated to your children. You're taking time out of your day to come and meet with me, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. So best advice, don't give up, keep trying. There's tons of information out there. If you have any questions, always make sure to message me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube as well. So my mission is to help parents be able to help their children. That's something that life has always kind of guided me towards. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. And I just want to check one last time if there's any questions, because I don't want to miss anything. Oh, thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much. Sheila, May, and Pecan, I'm so sorry for my mispronunciation. Good morning. Good morning. It's actually good evening for me. I'm going to be put to bed soon. But good morning to you. My daughter is 5. She talks, but she only says what she wants, but 1 to 2 words only. Example, when she is thirsty, she will say, Mama water or Mama eat. And sometimes I think she doesn't understand the questions. That's why she's not answering. Very lack of communication, no exchange in talks. Do you think ABA can help us? Thank you. Yes, ABA is speech and language pathology will help you, and ABA will help you. If she's already having words, speech and language pathology won't help you as much as ABA, because they'll really help bridge that gap and find out, help increase that language. So just a quick tip. So if she is saying, Mama eat, get her to say, I want water, or Mama give water. Just try and add one more word. Even if it doesn't sound not grammatically correct, that's okay. Just add another word. So Mama water, Mama wants water, or Mama water. Just add one extra word there and see if she can say it. If she can say it once, then the next time, make sure you expect her to say that every time. I don't mean this against your child or anybody's children, but our children are lazy, and if they can get away doing just a little bit and they can get a lot from us, they will do so. Doesn't matter if you're on the spectrum or not. So make sure you're always pushing them to just have a little bit of language. And for Mama eat, maybe try and get her to say, what does she want to eat? And that can help increase her language there. Do you want cracker? Do you want apple? Banana, and see if she can get that reciprocal back and forth. But the more you ask and get her to repeat back, and there's this exchange, the more she will understand that there's a reason why we're communicating. I think that's all the questions. I think that's all the questions for me for now.
Before I ask a very important question, if you would allow me, I will just make some announcement, a very, very quick announcement for the parents. Parents, please bear with me. I will just have to do this. I will just share my screen. So I'll just make some very important announcements. So first is on Friday, we're going to have our Autism Family Support live prayer online. We do this every Friday, 8:30 p.m. because we believe that we can only do so much. We can always apply science, but when we apply faith in God, it's very much better, because one touch of God for our kids, for our life, is worth lots and lots of hours in therapies, right? We have proven that, many parents have proven that already. So we put our trust in the Lord. So another is, we're going to have our coffee and tea online meetup. It will be on November 30 via Zoom meeting. That will be not next week, but it's going to be on November 30. So for our wisdom quote, Psalms 28 verse 7, the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart greatly rejoices, and with my song I will praise him. Psalms 118 verse 8, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Proverbs 3 verse 5 to 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. It is always good to trust in the Lord. Even when it comes to our kids, it's always the best to put our hope and our trust in God, who guides us, who gives us wisdom, who gives us ways on how to learn and how to connect and communicate to our kids. So if we could have this short prayer, everyone, let's pray for this. Okay, let's pray. Let's pray this with all of our heart and say this with our mouth. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for reaching out to show your love and care for me. I know that many times I am overwhelmed with challenges and problems. Jesus, my Savior, I put my trust in you. Holy Spirit, you are my help and my guide every day. God, thank you for always helping me, leading me to follow and trust you in every day. In your name, amen. Thank you for praying that with me, parents. So, right now, my final question is actually, Liz, kindly give us some tips to improve in clarity of speech, because some of our kids are already communicating. So, and if you have an available material that we can also print, if you have that, that will really be a big blessing to us.
I don't have anything to print, but I can definitely put something together. I was in the process of putting a workshop together for. It was so perfect that we connected, because I am putting some resources together. So I'll make sure to share them with you. But for those of you that are watching, I had one more mom actually ask just one more question before I go to the tips. So for ABA therapy, for those parents that are out there and they're thinking like, when should I start ABA therapy? ABA therapy, you can start right away. I recommend ABA therapy to be started as soon as possible. It is never too late. It is never too early. In doing ABA therapy. Make sure you're comfortable with your therapist, ask all the questions, and make sure that your therapist is listening to you as a parent. Advocate, you know what's best, and any therapist that is not listening to you and doesn't agree with that, get somebody different. Find someone that is listening to you because you know what is best. So my tips would be for those of that children already have some language and you want to increase language. So there's a couple of levels. So if you're using text and sign language, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So if you're using text and sign language and your child has a couple of words, my best tips would be to increase the amount of pictures that your child is having. Make sure that they're picking from a wide variety of pictures, not just one picture. And what the research is showing, the reason why text and sign language work is that it actually makes your child work a little bit harder than as if that they would verbally say it. So what happens is that your child may become frustrated looking through their text finder or trying to, get your attention. And what happens is they realize that the sound comes out and they can get what they want automatically. And that helps. That's why text and language are very good tools to help increase that language. Now, for those children that are either having stims or they're repetitive, building in that two-way reciprocal language. And my best tip is to do it while you're eating. Eating in most cultures, in my culture, I'm Portuguese, it's a very family-oriented activity. And food is highly reinforcing. Your child will always want to eat. They will be hungry. So using food as a way to increase language, either if that's getting them to ask you for things or taking the opportunity to model what is correct communication. And my third tip, for those that are having their children communicating but need to shape it to become a little bit better, you really need to take the place of a teacher. And it's going to feel really awkward, okay? It really does feel awkward because we take it for granted, us neurotypical, and I'm using the asterisk of neurotypical because we weren't really taught these things. We've sort of learned along the way, but you have to really break it down to some children of like, did you pay attention? I wasn't looking at you. Or did you pay attention that that sound that you said didn't quite sound like this, or the tone that you're using isn't quite appropriate. Be blunt, help and model the behavior. And you are the best model, you are the teacher. But I hope those tips have helped. Is that what you were looking for, Josephine? Like when you were talking about some tips that help communicate?
Yes, because some therapy says that if you start using that, your child might not be speaking at all because they will just rely on the pictures. So
oh no, that's not what the research shows at all. So that's why I always say, make sure you ask your therapist the correct questions. So the research actually shows that when your child is using pictures, it's actually harder. If you were to think about, I have to open up a binder, find the picture and give it to you versus verbally telling you the word. The research actually shows that the child is less likely to keep up with the pictures once they figure out they can verbally say it. And I've seen so many children it's so quick, it happens so quick. It's just this light bulb moment. They go off and they're like, oh wait, I can say this and not have to bring you that picture. But you have to keep in mind, if your child is saying those sounds that is close to that word, you need to honor that. Keep taking the picture. The verbal, you need to honor that they're verbally telling you. Even if they have the pictures, the goal is to have the verbal communication. So if the verbal communication is happening, stop using pictures. Like,
wow.
Number one, do not use the pictures anymore. If they are verbally telling you whatever it is, you don't need the pictures. You're just making it harder for them. And then yes, they may completely lose motivation for all language if you're making them verbally say it and work for the pictures. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Actually, when our kids are saying things, even though sometimes we can't understand them clearly, but we parents really understand that that is the word. So
Yeah.
we should really celebrate. You mean we should really appreciate that they are already speaking it, because I think on the contrary, when we keep on letting our kids say a certain word several times as if we're not trusting them in what they
Mhm.
are speaking. Maybe they will
Yes.
feel dumb, right?
Yes, they do, especially if they keep trying. Like within my protocol, whenever I try and get a child to speak, I only give 2 tries, because if I try too hard, they get frustrated and they don't want to do it, and that
Yes,
just works against you. So making
true.
sure that you want them to want to communicate with you.
It's very much
But
true.
in saying that, so there's some parents that they know what their child is saying, but their child is not saying that word. So I want you to be careful. If you're a parent that you know what your child is saying, but no one else around them can understand them, you need to help your child to be able to say it so everybody can understand. So you can help shape it and say to them, oh, you're almost there. Can you try again saying it that, this way, and see if they can get that. But the goal is one. If they're verbalizing anything, yes, celebrate it. Get that communication, because then they'll be like, great, I can get what I want if I just, give some sort of sound, and that builds a wonderful relationship.
So that means we should also challenge them a little bit to be able to do it. Um,
Yes.
Maybe just a right amount of challenge, not really so much stretch that they will feel uh, dumb or feel incompetent already. So parents, I think this is really, really very helpful with us, especially if your kids are already starting to say things, communicate things. This is really wonderful. And Liz, we can't really thank you enough. Thank you very, very much for gracing
You're
us.
very welcome.
Yeah, I hope we can have another one soon next year.
For sure. For sure. This has been so much fun. I've loved meeting all of you parents and seeing the chat, and everyone has asked such amazing questions. Just challenge your child just a little bit every day, not too much where you're discouraging. Like, that's honestly, if you take one thing away from today, start with one word, just a little bit more. I think we all underestimate how much we do in a year. So if you just make a little change every day, in 6 months, the amount of words your child can have, it can be substantial. So, and if you have any questions, make sure to check me out on Facebook or on YouTube at Teaching Kids with Liz, and I'm more than happy to answer any more questions. And thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Lee. So parents, remember one word and increase it from there. That's from Liz. And Mommy AJ says, very informative session. Um, Thanks very much. And there's so many thank you
You're
here from
welcome.
Mommy Kathy also. Thank you. So from all of us, from the bottom of our hearts, from the parents, thank you, Liz, Stefanyi. So parents, thank you for joining with us. See you on Friday in our prayer session. God bless and take care.
Bye. Love you.
Yay, we're